Hello, today we are going to discuss demonic king Belial, and we are going to discuss symbolism, and we are going to perform 4 rituals for 4 friends of mine. Really short 4 rituals to help them out. Now, I'm gonna talk about symbols, and I'm gonna talk about what is necessary for successful magical work before we start dealing with another aspect of the occult and esoteric mysteries here. So, as I said, we are going to talk about Belial. Belial is, if we want to be really concise, a genic king of anarchy. And we have to define a state of anarchy. The anarchy is basically chaos in a political sense. So Belial is a Jinn King of Anarchy in a political sense. What do I mean by Jinn King of Anarchy? I mean the Jinn King who wishes to cause anarchy whenever and wherever he appears. And he also exposes anarchy. He feeds off anarchy. Now, he is not God. He is a creation of God, and therefore he works within the limitations which God have created. And basically, he is fundamentally animalistic because anarchy and chaos are animalistic. And in the long term, he always brings anarchy to all people he works with, to all situations he is involved in. So he is a really good short-term solution, but really bad long-term program, if it makes sense. He's really good if you are in a tough spot and you need a quick fix for a legal problem or a problem with violence. But he is really bad long-term program because he will inevitably breed the same violence and lawlessness you called him to fix. If you work with Belial to protect from violence, he will protect you from violence, but his presence will generate additional violence later down the track. And this is the same with all of the works involving him. You call him for knowledge, he will give you knowledge, but then he will beat you up revealing the things you don't necessarily know. You call him to fix violence and he will fix violence. But later down the track you're gonna encounter bigger violence you weren't aware of. That's how he basically works. Because his main goal is to produce anarchy and chaos. His main goal is to create chaos. And so, can you fix chaos with chaos? The answer is yes, but it's gonna create bigger chaos later down the track. And so, ideal way to work with him in my experience is you call him, you fix the problem, you fulfill your part of the obligation of the genic contract for labor you signed, and then you return to invoking exclusively divine names and stuff of this nature. Because that is, in my experience, the most effective way to work with him. Because what you definitely don't want is prolonged chaos in your life, because nobody can really withstand prolonged chaos no matter what they claim. I have seen many so-called children of Belial crying like babies after they cause prolonged chaos they claim to be resistant to. I personally admit that I am not capable of invoking prolonged chaos, and I am not willing to going to it. I tried it to a ridiculous degree, and I understand that I'm not capable of handling it. And I have never met a so-called child of Belial who didn't cry like a deranged woman, at least as soon as the chaos hit. Those who claim to be the children of chaos are the first to cry when the actual chaos hits. The problem with this entire community, a commune of people, is that it's full of pretenders. It's full of people who never experienced actual chaos and struggle in their life, who are role-playing. And that is really the problem. And so that represents the problem, even involving the work with Belial. So if we want to be honest, we need to understand this. Belial is one of the few spirits who it is okay to refrain from if you cannot handle the chaos, because he will cause it. And you should probably refrain from working with him long term unless you are really willing to go into chaos, because he will cause the chaos. Okay? And he will let you see it for what it really is. We are living in the world where the chaos is glorified because people live overly orderly lives. They are dominated by idiotic routines, and so they glorify and idolize chaos. And they don't realize that they are not prepared for anything like chaos at all. So, if you are starting work with Belial, you have to understand that he will put you in the chaos you are definitely not ready for. And more somebody claims they work with Belial, less competent they are in actually working with the spirit. That seems to be the case for majority of the Drunic entities, but it's definitely the case for Belial. That's why I don't advertise my work with the Jinn as much. First, because I don't see them as gods. Second, because I realize that working with them is not necessarily the safest thing ever. And so I'm really careful about what I publish and how I say, in order to avoid people getting hurt. So we're gonna start right now explaining the practical dimension of working with Belial. And that is this. So what you first have to learn is you have to learn how to fall into trance. You have to learn how to relax your mind and relax your body so you can sink into alternative state of consciousness. And I'm going to teach you 3 methods in this video. This is method number 1. You turn off all of the lights in your room and you breathe really slowly. After a while of really slow breathing, you're gonna start falling asleep. Now, you are going to allow your brain to fall asleep even further, and then after a while of falling asleep, you will not actually go to sleep, you will go into trance. You'll go into alternative state of mind where it will be much easier to perceive spirits. If you want an analogy from normal life, it's pretty similar to the state you are in when you have sleep paralysis, or the state you are in when you are close to sleep, in between sleep and waking consciousness. In order to be able to see the jinn and hear them, you have to be in alternative state of mind. Normal human state of mind is not conducive to seeing them and hearing them. The method number 1 is breathing really fast, like this. and you keep doing this until you start feeling euphoric. Then, after you start feeling euphoria, you start calling the spirit. Once you do that, the effects will be much stronger. The third method is this. The third method is you simply need to stimulate your chakras over and over again until you kind of feel ecstatic, and then you will see the spirits. But this seems to be the most difficult of them all. What is also required to see the spirits is you have to be in complete darkness in your ritual space, so no light at all. That's also a great enhancer. So you need to enter into the dark room without any light. Going to enter into trance via any method I described here. It has to be trained, so you have to train your body to go into trance via any of the methods I prescribed. Once you learned it and you fall into trance, then you do this. By the power of Adonai, I raise the sacred space. By the power of Adonai, I raise the sacred space. By the power of Adonai, I raise the sacred space. I call servants of Adonai to raise the sacred space. You repeat this chant until you feel energy barrier raising around you as a form of protective orb. Once you achieve that, then you go like this. By the power of Adonai, I call you Belial. By the power of Adonai, I call you Belial. By the power of Adonai, I call you Belial. By the power of Adonai, I call you Belial. By the power of Adonai, I call you Belial. By the power of Adonai, I call you Belial. By the power of Adonai, I call you Belial. By the power of Adonai, I call you Belial. Ha Belial, Ha Shadim. 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 You repeat this chant in the sacred space until you feel a really strong dark presence watching you. Other sides could be cold or heat through your body or stimulation in any of the chakra centers. Once the spirit is present, give him your request, whatever it is, and negotiate with the spirit the terms of the working, the terms under which the spirit will work, the terms under which you will work. Once that is complete and negotiated, spirit will depart and you have your agreement. That's it. Now, a lot of people are telling me, I just see and feel really slight presence of the spirit. How can I negotiate? The thing is, if you call spirit in the dark room for a really long period of time in the sacred space, they will materialize physically and you will be able to talk to them, you will hear them. What also is recommended is that you fast, which means you take no food. Now, if you are not capable of physically or medically fasting, you can eat food every day, but you still have to be in the dark room until the spirit appears, and it can take any amount of time, from a day to multiple days, depending on how developed you are. I recommend everyone who is watching this video, if we talk about fasting, you have to go to medical professional and you have to do a full medical check regarding how can you fast and how long. I have seen too many cases of people going to hospital because of stupid fasting, and I don't want to be a part of that movement. I am sick of idiots pretending to know what they have no idea about. And the method I suggested here for calling Belial is simple. You have to learn how to fall into trance in the dark room, then you have to train raising of the sacred space in the dark room. Once you learn it, you can call Belial in the dark room. The preparation itself and the training of the necessary skills can take you from 4 weeks to a year until you can start calling. The dark room and long period of the operation is the key. Sometimes it can take multiple days, sometimes simply multiple hours. It depends for individual to individual. But the operation will pay off by the magnitude of its result. There is nothing I can do to change the technology, nor is anything I can do to change the procedure. No short procedure have given so effective results as the extended procedures I described. I have tried teaching my students many other different procedures and it didn't give the results this procedure gave. This is the best procedure so far to call any spirit you wish, especially those of genic providence. Now, there is a note I want to give. Many of the traditional witchcraft practitioners claim that one should expose himself to impure substances during the ritual. In some early incarnation of this tutorial, I also have advised for similar things. Now I completely denounce that, and I think that you should not expose yourself to any impure substances during the procedure. Instead, procedures should explicitly be conducted via divine names and isolation, dark room, and fasting, if that is possible, with the health of the person. If one is not allowed to fast due to health, then he should not, but he should stay in the darkness, in the physical darkness, and call the spirit via divine names and the chant the spirit gave until the spirit appears. One should not attempt any contract until the presence of the spirit is semi-physical. Okay? Now I am going to basically perform the ritual for 3 friends of mine, but instead, actually 4 of them. But instead of doing that, I will also, in this clip, explain why is symbolism important and how symbolism works. So symbolism doesn't represent a literal thing, it represents the meaning of that thing. So let me explain. Let's say that you see a symbol of the cross, right? It doesn't represent 2 wooden planks nailed to each other. It represents the crossroads, the meeting of 2 worlds, and the sacrifice necessary to complete the merging of 2 worlds, physical and the spiritual, seen and the unseen. Now in Christianity, Jesus is the sacrifice. In polytheism, life force is the sacrifice. In witchcraft, whatever person agrees with the gen is the offering, will be the offering. Now I am using the term witchcraft here, and I am using it for the audience to understand what I'm talking about, but in reality the word witchcraft is not the word I like because it involves and describes and applies to many of the things I disagree with. What I like using more is spiritual works, or ruhaniyat, which means working with the spirit. I don't like the word witchcraft and word witchcraft because it implies going up against divine authority, and I think that is absurd because it is impossible uh, for a human being to go against divine flow. Any attempt to do so is guided by misunderstanding of how divine flow really works. And really, when one tries to commit blasphemy of any kind, they are not blaspheming against uh, God, because the flow of universal energy doesn't care. The universal principle doesn't care. How do you read the Quran, forwards or backwards? What is really happening is you are simply exposing yourself to negative energy you really are probably not able to handle. Majority of the people who do serious blasphemous rituals, I am not talking about role players, I'm talking about people who seriously do it, die or get sick. It's not a good place to be. And I speak from experience. Um, the fast way to die is to do blasphemous impure rituals. It's a fast way to finish yourself. And symbolism is about the meaning. I gave the example of the cross. In Christianity, cross represents the sacrifice of Jesus, because in Christianity, Jesus sacrificed himself so we can engage with the spiritual world and be cleaned. But cross itself is a symbol of the crossroads, which is the meeting of the physical and the spiritual in one point. And the Jesus in Christianity is simply the sacrifice on the crossroads, but the cross itself, as the representation of the crossroads, is much older than Jesus, or the concept of Jesus atoning for your sins from a philosophical standpoint. Now I am going to start performing a really short ritual of mine for 4 of my friends. I performed longer version of the ritual privately, and this is just going to be a short demonstration and a really weak ritual for me, just to show token of support to the friends of mine. But I performed much longer ritual, much longer version of this privately. Barham Bael gadam toran bardar margalan kambarga shalmash katir florchanga timashalak rashkas nas bilet ratagia. Simiaka bamash kirsaka barabiru shala huenka hilbart masema shalash vandiapiash. I call you Belial to protect Joshua B, Kim F, Shell B, and Colbert. Protect all 4 of my friends. By the power of Barham Belgadam Toran Mardar Marjalan Kampar Kajal Mashkati Morgan Dimensional Drataki the Archon Sefu Simia Simia Kadva Mashkir Saka Barabiru Shala Wenga Hilbachal Nasima Shal from the Apiash. Barham Belgadam Toran Mardar Marjalan Kampar Kajal Mashkati Shanka Dimensional Rashkas Spirit Narataki. Kadva Mashkir Saka Barabiru Shala Wenga Hilbachal Nasima Shal from the Apiash. Barham Belgadam Toran Mardar Marjalan Kampar Kajal Mashkati Lojan. Magashkati Mashalak the Rashkas must be like Narata Gidiacham Diego Simia Simia Kadmawash, Kurosaka Parapirushala, when I yell Bachala, the same Marshal and the years. Barham Belga and Toran Mardar Mandala, Kambargashal Mashkati, Rangati Mashalak the Rashkas must be like Narata Gidiacham Sekuzimis. Saka Parapirushala, when I yell Bachala, the same Marshal and the years. Barham Belga and Toran Mardar Mandala, Shkati Rashakati Mashalak the Rashkas must be like Narata Gidiacham. I call you, servants of the divine names, to call for King Belial to protect my friends I mentioned. Okay. The energy of Belial is present. That's it. I purposefully did this so that names of my friends are actually protected. I use pseudonyms they are aware of. protect their privacy. It's really stupid to disclose hardcore details of your rituals publicly to the public. That's a mistake I made in the past. It will not happen again. And there is another thing I want to talk about, which is binding Jinn with divine names. Any spirits with the divine names is simply stupid. If you came to the point you can bind the Jinn with a divine name, you probably don't need any Jinnic assistance at all. You can do everything with the divine names. If you are summoning a Jinn with the divine names, you are probably not capable of binding them with those aforementioned names. So that entire binding of the Jinn thing works usually like this. We pretend to command them and they pretend to obey. What is really possible is you can use divine names to summon the Jinn more effectively to receive the energy necessary to complete the rite. But agreement between you and the Jinn is voluntary, and it's usually really difficult to force the Jinn to an agreement he dislikes. It is really tricky to make an agreement with them if you are not capable of hearing them or seeing them. You usually need a channeler who will do it for you, but I don't advise elaborate covenants with them and agreements if you are not able to talk to them and figure out what the fuck is going on. Because a lot of people get fucked over. Also understand that a lot of the Jinn have ulterior motives and they don't have your best intentions in mind, so be really careful with whom you are making the agreement. This list includes Belial. But if one is willing to endure the hardship of actually summoning him to full physical appearance, he will definitely provide relatively quick results, but I gave the warning. And also, if you want to have healthy relationship with him, I deem venerating him as a god completely redundant. I don't see any increase in the results from people who venerate him as a god. They don't have any results who are better than mine or than anyone else who doesn't venerate them as gods. I have no idea who came up with this concept that if you venerate them, you will somehow have better results. He will give you many of the magical techniques which are contrary to the official religious prohibitions. If you don't want to do them, fine. If you want to do them, also fine. It's your freedom. I personally have a limitation on how much I'm willing to go into this transgressive thing, because sometimes it benefits them more than it benefits us, and it's also dangerous. Sometimes it benefits the Jinn more than it benefits the human contractor, and it's dangerous, so I can evaluate the risks myself. In the past I was really reckless, now I am less reckless with those kinds of things. Thanks for watching. If you want more content like this, subscribe to the channel and talk to you soon.